Wills, trusts, and real estate. What's going to happen with your assets when you die? We're going to talk with estate and probate attorney Lorie Burch on this episode of Relax, I Got This, where we elevate your real estate IQ. Stay tuned.
A real estate transaction is potentially the largest investment we make in our lives. Whether you're buying and selling your personal home or investing in real estate, you need the knowledge to make the right decisions. Get ready. Robin is a Texas realtor and has the experience to give you the information you need to make the right decisions. Welcome to Relax, I Got This with your host, Robin McCoy.
Hey everybody, Robin McCoy, Texas realtor with Relax, I Got This, the show where we elevate your real estate IQ. And today we have estate attorney Lorie Burch with Burch Law, and we are going to talk about why you need wills and trusts, because the things that you think you know, you don't know. So, Lorie, 18 years in the business. Tell us, people don't know what they don't know.
They don't know what they don't know, which, one of the things I've enjoyed the most doing this is really help educating people, because that's the first hurdle. And so there's a lot of things that, that people have misperceptions about. So that's usually the place that I start. And I think one of the most significant thing for Texans, and certainly something significant for you, is that a home that is owned by a married couple, even if it's in the same, or even an unmarried couple, but, that is owned by, that both names can be on the title, bought it during marriage, what have you, does not, and this next word is what's important, does not automatically go to the spouse when they pass away. It does work like that in a lot of other states, but Texas is not one of them. And that is one of the most common things that we run across. And that's one of 100 things that people don't know, but it's one of the biggest ones.
Well, yeah. And that's just it. They just assume because we went in, we were married, we bought it at the same time, we were both on the loan, whether it's paid for now or not,
right?
That it's just an automatic thing because it's my house too.
It makes sense. It works that if they move from a different state, probably worked that way there. With bank accounts, typically they're set up that way. And it's called with the rights of survivorship. And the reason why the bank accounts are like that, it's one of two things. Either the bank is based in a state that does recognize that right of survivorship, or when you're signing all the paperwork for an account, you don't realize that you're signing an extra agreement that says right of survivorship.
Right.
So I get that. It's one of the things I'm most sensitive about, and I'm not sensitive about a lot of stuff that people don't know anymore. I'm way too jaded and cynical after 18 years. But that's one that I actually do. I am sensitive to that one.
Because intuitively, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, from a legal standpoint, the development of Texas law and community property, you can see you can understand how it's trended, but it's definitely something, and maybe that'll change one day. I don't know, but
today
that is where we are.
Yeah.
And then of course, when we, with Texas, and I'm going to, let you guide this conversation, but one of the other biggest misperceptions is just when there's stepchildren and blended families, that assets actually go to the kids outside the marriage, your stepkids, rather than directly to you. So even in a house situation, it's not that it won't it's not just that it won't automatically go to a surviving spouse, but if the spouse that passed away had kids from a different marriage or relationship, that their share of the house actually goes to them. So
now now there's and we'll get to that, because I want to spend some time about opening up some can of worms.
Yeah.
And there's worms everywhere and they won't get back in the can.
Yeah.
So, but that's just a big part of it. And I asked Lorie to come on the show because she is doing a series on the You Can't Handle the Truth about estates, wills, trusts, and those sorts of things. And so there are just so many things, and I run into it, 2 or 3 a year. I had 2 last month.
Yeah.
In the closing of 2 different properties where there were a couple of difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
And people, one of them, so let's just kind of open up this can of worms here, right? So dad dies 15 years ago, has a will.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
He's got a will.
Yeah.
Mom lives for another 15 years, died a year ago, had a trust.
Okay.
Well, they didn't know that you had to probate dad's will.
Yeah.
So we get to selling the house, and now we've got to verify dad's marital status history, any potential other children.
Yeah.
All, an affidavit of heirship.
Yeah.
And fortunately, this family had somebody that had known the family since the 80s, and they were willing to, swear, like we talked about before the show, get in front, but then we had another one that couldn't do an heirship affidavit.
Yeah.
On another transaction. And it cost the family probably 20 grand.
Oh yeah, sure.
Just in the sale of that house.
Easy. But who wants to pay a lawyer to get it done right?
Yeah. So, talk about that a little bit, so people don't know you have to probate a will.
Yeah. So you've hit on a lot of different things, and they're all in a lot of common scenarios, because we don't just do the wills, trust, powers of attorney, estate plan. We also do the probate side of things, which one of the things, if we don't get to it, let me just throw that up right now, anybody who you understand that you should go to a professional law firm to do this, make sure they also do probate. That's going to be one of the tips I would give you. Maybe there'll be more tips later, but definitely make sure they do probate. Otherwise, they are law students drafting hypothetical documents, because if you don't know how they get interpreted by courts, then you don't really know what you're doing.
Then you know what you're doing. No, but, it's true.
So a couple of things. One, I want to make sure I don't miss any of them, but I'll lead up to the whole title issue last, since I know that's what you love. So the first one is, a will does have to go through probate court. I don't want people to think that's a bad thing, but there are some options. The more you're willing to spend and do work now, the more you'll save and in time and money later. But a will at least gets your wishes across, because our mantra is, if you don't have a will, the state of Texas has one for you. Right? Probably not the last time we'll say that today. But so you're going to get to make all the decisions: who gets your assets, who takes care of your kids, how are things distributed, who's your executor, who makes medical decisions when we start talking about other legal documents. So it's very valuable, because your wishes are carried out. Without a will, it is completely up to what the state of Texas decides. And so a will is very critical. It also, yes, will make it faster and will make it less expensive. It just doesn't take away the cost and time. I mean, on average right now, this time frame, to probate a will that has no issues, more about that in a second, because that's another one you bring up, but to probate a will that doesn't have any issues, there's no problems, it's not being contested, we have the original, that's very important with a will, something to keep in mind, is about $3,000 to probate a will, to get it through the process. And then it can take 2-3 months sometimes before you can start, meaning accounts can be frozen. You can't sell a house. Ooh, Robin doesn't like that. You have to wait before you can even list the thing for that amount of time. And that's from the point that you've hired an attorney and filed. And we're not always the first people they contact when someone's passed away. So you're talking about how long. And there's also an emotional toll. I mean, we had a client who was very upset with us, because where else were they going to put it? Because they were having to wait so long for the probate process so she could sell her husband's car. And it was just because she wanted to move on. She was just, she had a hard time looking at that car in her driveway every day. And I like to bring up that story just so people understand we aren't talking about just transactional things that happen. This is an emotional, grieving time that people are going through. What if you care about your family and loved ones, and there are people who don't, and that's fine. But for those who do, you're the ones I'm talking to. So a will does have to go through probate. It does make it faster. It does make it less expensive. It's also still a public record. There's, pros and cons to it, but it's still better than not doing anything. The other part that you bring up is, in Texas, you have 4 years from the date of death to probate the will. So what happens if you've waited 4 years? The default law is that it's been revoked and it doesn't exist, which is why in your situation, probably the affidavits of heirship was the path of least resistance. But that's something we're in the position of assessing, because there are some exceptions. But courts in Texas over the last 3 to 5 years have become much more stringent on the things that they'll accept. Title companies have too. So some of these alternative things that we sometimes could use aren't being as accepted. So There is a way to probate a will after 4 years. It's very limited. There's steps, there's hoops to jump through, and it doesn't always work. But that's another problem. The biggest thing that you hit on that we see, this happens all the time, will or no will.
Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the bustling DFW area? Look no further, because I am Robin McCoy, your trusted real estate agent with Keller Williams Realty. For over 15 years, I've been helping buyers and sellers navigate the real estate market here in DFW. So whether you're looking for your dream home or aiming to sell your property for the best price, relax. I got this. As a seasoned professional, I'll guide you through the entire process, ensuring a smooth and stress-free experience. I understand that buying or selling a home can be a significant decision. That's why I pride myself on providing exceptional customer service. I'll be with you every step of the way, answering your questions and addressing your concerns. So why take a chance with just any real estate agent? Choose me, Robin McCoy, the professional who has proven my excellence in helping both buyers and sellers in the DFW area for over 15 years. Call me today at 214-226-3770 or visit my website at robinmccoyrealty.com. Let's make your DFW real estate dreams come true. Relax. I got this.
The biggest thing that you hit on that we see, this happens all the time, will or no will. A spouse passes away. Life insurance, they're the beneficiary. Bank accounts, just automatically to them. If you keep paying your mortgage and your taxes, nobody's going to tell you that the title of your house isn't clear until you try to refi, until you try to sell, or what happened in your situation, which happens more times than not, you pass away and your kids call a probate firm and, hey, mom and dad did wills. So they're like, you know what, mom passed, she did a will, we need a probate. And then we start looking at it and your dad passed away 10 years ago and nothing was done. No, she didn't realize that she had to. Boom. Now we're left with 2 probates. And because it was a period of time, typically, we have to backtrack and see what we can do. Yours ended in probably the best case scenario, but that is not what happens most of the time.
Yeah. We were just fortunate that, there were some college friends that had known the family and were still in contact with the family. So knew them.
Yeah. And let's talk about that just real quick, because when there isn't a will or a trust or some legal plan, there are alternatives. And we're talking about one that was the path of least resistance. But let me tell you, the 2 issues with that still is, one, the state of Texas is still going to decide how assets are distributed and who's in charge. So you get lucky if the only heir by law is a spouse or adult children and all of that. But when we talked about this a few moments ago, stepkids or, minor children or things like that, it's not as clean cut but you can't do anything about it. That's who it's going to.
Yeah.
If it's going to your 3 kids, but you're estranged from one, or it's going to your siblings, but one of your siblings died before you. Now, do they have kids? Where are they? One's in jail. One's 5 years old. I'm only using this because these are real life examples we have.
No,
That's messy. And then the other thing that I know that we can only harp on so many things, but one of them is every single alternative to having a will, a trust, and estate plan, meaning you've done nothing, includes getting 2 people who knew you for insert amount of time that a title company cares about, but let's just say 10 years, knew you, is willing to sign a sworn statement and or go to court and say they know your marital history, they know all your kids that you've ever had, they know what assets you have, and they know what debts you have. Even the simplest alternative, the small estate affidavits and all of these things, I don't have a whole lot, they all require that.
Well, and that was part of a second situation where the woman owned the house. She got it outright in a divorce. That was all fine. She's the only one in the title. She got remarried. Her husband moved in. He didn't have a will. He was never put on the house. He passed away. Well, now he doesn't have a will. His interest in the house died when he died as far as homestead.
Yeah.
And yet they still wanted an affidavit, heirship affidavit, but nobody knew him for that amount of time that would be willing to swear in front of the judge.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that process didn't happen. We
Yeah.
had to move it and do something different. We had to move some stuff around.
Yeah.
So it's not as well, it's my house, it's her house, it's his house, it's, you told a story one time where people are married. He dies without a will. He had a previous marriage. He had children. So his share, and you were talking, I think that's probably what you were alluding to before, where now his current wife has to work with her deceased husband's previous wife because her children now own his interest in her house.
Right. So if the scenario of stepkids by default inheriting your spouse's half of everything isn't bad enough, if they're underage, a court's going to have to step in and appoint who will oversee that for them. And more likely than not, they're going to pick their guardian, their other parent, which is the surviving spouse's, deceased spouse's ex. And I know it sounds like something that's totally made up.
It sounds like a fiction story, like a book.
And it's just
happened,
not.
and it's not.
More often than not. And another thing, Robin, that comes up, and I think it's probably more common than we want to realize, where people give up their parental rights, whether it's they give a child up for adoption, or if someone severed their parental rights to allow a step parent to adopt or everything, that does not sever them as your heir unless it's specifically put into that paperwork, which, spoiler alert, it usually isn't contemplated.
No.
So while you may not be a legal parent to them, they are still a legal heir of yours.
Wow. So now I have put my child up for adoption. 20 years later, or 5 years later, I die. So all of my estate, my share, my interest in my assets now go to that child that I put up for adoption.
Yes.
That I haven't had any relationship with.
Correct.
For whatever reason.
I'll tell you one of the hardest parts of that scenario. I mean, the answer is yes, but I can tell you in our experience, it hasn't even been that issue. It's been finding them.
Yeah.
It's been getting them willing to sign off and disclaim things, because they can do that. But certainly.
But now all of a sudden they go, what? I got $100,000 coming to me? Yeah, I want it.
Yeah.
And now it messes up this
Or
whole
my favorite is when they're, and it's not just in this specific situation, but any family member where they're like, I don't want anything. And it's like, great, you don't want anything. Can you please sign this paperwork that says you don't want anything? I don't want to be involved. I'm like, then you co-own this house.
You are involved. You're already involved?
Yes, that actually happened. Like, I don't want anything to do with it. I was estranged from my mom. I don't want anything to do with the house. Then sign this paperwork. No. I'm not signing anything.
I don't want my name on it.
You co-own this house. And you're going to have to help pay taxes on it.
Yeah, because taxes are due here in a couple months.
Yeah.
Well, and that's part of it too, right? So people don't know what they don't know, and they assume certain things because either they lived in another state or it just makes intuitive sense to them.
Yeah.
And we're getting to a point where it aging parents, right? The baby boomers are aging, and they're the ones that very likely died without a will. Right. I had a friend that her dad died with a will, but his mom never got one because, women don't need wills. She died in her 80s without a will. And then the kids were left to figure this out, because why do women need? He had the will. It was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, the stories can go on. And
oh yeah.
And I know it's
and you realize, and I know this is, because it's your show, we've focused a lot on homes, but I do it as well when I'm just talking to people, because there's such a misperception of I don't have an estate, or I don't have money, or I don't have assets.
Right.
And I meant to Google, you may know this, but I want to look up what's the percent of home ownership, and all of those people in Texas should have something. And, I love to say, a will, let's say if you don't have a will, the state of Texas, all of that, but that's really a placeholder for just a legal plan, because there's lots of different options. There's trusts, there's transfer on death deeds. There's a lot of different things, which is why, the DIY stuff is just so terrible, because you don't have somebody advising you. We're not drafters of paperwork. We're not
Right.
scribes. Tell me
Right.
what you
Right.
want and we'll put it there. We help you plan. We
Yeah.
help we
Yeah.
help hear what it is, the result that you want, and give you the options and pathway to get there. And hey, you know what? It'd be great if it were so simple. It would be great if it were less expensive and less time consuming. But one of my favorite expressions, if wishes and butts were or ifs and buts were candies and nuts, every day would be like Christmas, something like that.
It's like I used to have I wanted a 23-inch waist. Well, that's not happening
Yeah.
either. So
Yeah.
let's get past that.
Yeah. We need to
And
move past this,
let's
that
live
we
in
are.
reality right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And that's one of the, you brought up the do it yourself. So
Yes.
a friend of mine in Minneapolis sent me a note the other day because I've been sharing your "You Can't Handle the Truth" posts, and of course she saw that, and she goes, "I'd be interested to know what your attorney friend would think about this." And she sent me a link. Minnesota has become the 13th state to legalize or pass legislation that e-wills, if you will, I guess that's what they're called, are valid and legal. And it costs about $159, and it makes it more accessible to everyone, is what the article said. So tell me why that's bad.
And you said that was Minnesota?
That was Minnesota.
I can tell you, I can hear it from here. The sound of Minnesota probate attorneys jumping for joy. They are
because they're going to make $1 million.
They're going to make bank off of this. And that is the reality. Now, in a less cynical way, I will tell you, as a probate attorney, that is not how we want to make money. It's really not, because you're not here, so your family's pissed at who? Us.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do it that way. But for people, so a couple of misperceptions that are tied into there. And I mean, we could talk for hours about the DIY stuff, but let's make sure we hit a few highlights that's really important for people to understand. One, you are not going to save money. You are promising that probate attorneys will make more money. So when you hear attorneys say, no, you should really get this done properly, if one of the reasons that you're not believing that is because you're like, oh, you're just trying to sell me a will, let me tell you, we make a lot more money when you do nothing or you do one of these other things. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So let's just dispel that. So then I think about, like, well, what are they doing it for? And I want to get into a couple substantive reasons why they're bad, but let me just tell you a few things. I've done a lot of research, because that's what started my 31 days of truth. There's been a huge uptick, and I get into these debates. Like, the only time I debate strangers on the internet is when it comes to DIY stuff. Right. Because one, they're not attorneys. Two, they're not probate attorneys. Three, and this is what I'm getting at, they say, yes, you can do it. It was so easy. And when you go to all the testimonials, and this is so interesting, on all of them, all the DIY forms, what have you, if it's will kits, all the testimonials say it was so easy. It was so easy. It was so inexpensive. It was so this, it was so that. Not a single one of them talks about what happens when it was needed.
Right. I was going to say, those people are all still alive.
Yeah.
That are giving those testimonials.
My thing is that it's only better than nothing, because nothing has happened. And it's like, yeah, it's really easy to just fill all this stuff out, but until it's used, that's when everything falls apart. And in fact, one of the leading DIY sites has a whole disclaimer section on it. One, about how none of your information is private. Two, attorney-client privilege, we can't do that. But a company can. But two, they have a whole section of reasons why DIY wills may be bad. I can tell you there is not a single law firm out there that has a section on, this is why hiring us is a bad idea. A whole section. That'll be one of I've got it screenshotted. So that will be one.
I'm looking forward to that.
I don't know when it's going to fall into play, but I will share that. Like, this is on their site. Here's all the reasons not to do this.
Yeah, don't do this, because now when things all fall apart after, Bob dies and Mary's trying to figure this out, they're like, oh no, we told Bob that this was a bad idea. Yeah.
So let me just tell you real quickly from a substantive standpoint,
okay,
why that is. Why is it that they don't work? Why is it? And once in a blue moon, the stars align and we're good. Okay. I'm not saying it'll never work, I'm just saying, do you want to leave it to chance? And in fact, you're going to see we're about to launch a brand new campaign next week. It's only for Texans, but where we will do a free, no obligation, no strings attached analysis of your DIY will. So you can actually know whether it'll work or not. So stay tuned for that. But one, this is the most ridiculous reason, but it is the most common reason it doesn't work. They don't get signed correctly. We talked a little bit about how I wish this was before we started, about how I wish it was easier, the legal requirements of making these things valid, particularly wills. But the fact is they're not. It is very important how they're witnessed, how they're notarized, and anybody is going to think that sounds like really super easy. But I almost say it's like this tourist phenomenon. So what I mean is, I know that I'm a very smart person. But when I go travel in a different place, I'm a moron.
Because I don't know what.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what street I'm turning on. I don't know. Like, I don't understand anything. I'm walking around. I'm stopping in the middle of the sidewalk, and people in New York are bumping into me. Complete moron. That is how people are. Very intelligent people, because saying it just needs to be witnessed, signed, and notarized. When they look at legal paperwork, they have that tourist phenomenon. They become absolute morons. And you don't know until you know. And so I've seen ones where a notary signs on the witness blank, and there's no, I mean, just things you could not even fathom.
And you would think the notary would know a little bit.
Look, I'm a notary. I gave $80.
I am too. Yeah, you gave somebody some money, and the same thing. Okay. But I try to be smart about it.
But yeah, so they aren't even signed correctly, and there is no close in estate planning and probate. Okay, either it's a valid will or it doesn't exist. There's no well, this was their intent, or this. No, it just does not exist.
So now it's not signed properly. We signed or notarized it incorrectly. So now everything in that document is no longer valid.
Doesn't mean anything.
As if
happens all the time. So forget it. Like, people are like, yeah, but I'm a smart person. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to figure it out. And yeah, you can. Let me tell you a couple other issues. We had someone who, Robin, you're going to like this, lost their homestead exemption because they did what's called a living trust, which we love around here. They signed it correctly. They even managed to get the deed recorded to go to the trust. So great. They did what they needed to do. That home's not subject to probate court, nothing, except there wasn't a clause in the deed that allowed them to preserve their homestead exemption.
I wouldn't even occur to me that you would, because
why would you know that?
You wouldn't know that.
Are you an estate planning and probate attorney?
No, I'm a real estate agent that's been in business, and I would think, because I'm a smart person and I'm in real estate, so I would just assume that it would stay with the house.
Be the leader you know you can be. Build your professional network and access education that takes you where you want to go. We are women of all ages and backgrounds. You deserve national recognition and opportunities to build relationships with people you want to work and grow with. Hit the ground running with the Charisma chapter of the American Business Women's Association. Meetings each month from 6 to 8:30 p.m. on the fourth Tuesday in Farmers Branch, Texas, and online. Come with us. Experience ABWA for yourself. Go to charisma.abwa.org to learn more.
Because I'm a smart person and I'm in real estate, so I would just assume that it would stay with the house, but that's not true.
Yeah, so they lost their homestead exemption, and I think we all know as Texans that we love our homestead exemptions because property taxes are insane. Yeah. So, we were able to fix it because we know what to do. We know the clause that needs to be in there. But why would you, maybe you would, Robin, but why would a layperson, or sometimes people think attorneys would be our least favorite clients. I love attorney clients because usually what they say is, I know what I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Maybe it's just for estate planning purposes, but I love attorneys as clients. Spoiler alert, just so you know, I'm sorry if you're in this category, everybody out there, but it is a pretty much agreed upon consensus among estate planning attorneys that engineers are the worst clients. Is a universal thing. That is a universal thing.
And they want to read every word, and they
You
think
may be great human beings, but you are terrible estate planning clients. So, not other attorneys. But anyway, you don't like other attorney. My point is, even other attorneys don't necessarily know this.
right.
So you
Know
really,
what
that's
you know, right? I
so
mean, I
why
have
do it on
a,
your, yeah.
I have a commercial real estate agent that hires me to buy and sell his house because he says, I don't touch anything with keys. I don't know how to do this. And he doesn't. He sells commercial dirt around
Yeah.
Dallas.
Huh.
He goes, nothing I have has keys to it. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like,
Okay.
thank you very much for acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, the people who that acknowledge, I don't know, I'm trusting you. Here you go. Are very refreshing. But yes, I mean, not only would an online forum not going to tell you, but there are firms that don't even necessarily know to put that in, which is why it's important to not only do this the right way, but make sure that you're finding a good firm. The last example, because I gave you 100, but this one's super important, particularly since our practice is somewhat unique compared to a lot of estate. Well, it's unique for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest parts that makes it unique is we really have a younger clientele, and so most of our clients have young kids under 18. So the elderly clients we have are usually the parents of our main clients. They're moving here to be, they're retiring, they want to be close to their grandkids, all of that. So we have a very special expertise in dealing with that. And it's very important because forget money, like you need to make sure that they're not wards of the state and in child protective services if something happens. But here's what's critical. Most people that we know, that we work with, and again, this isn't about having massive wealth or anything like that, but if they've got a life insurance policy or a retirement at work, or maybe, they've got some investment accounts even, those are all assets that you fill out a form and say who you want your beneficiary to be.
Mm-hmm.
A beneficiary overrides anything a will or a trust is going to say. So if my will says everything to my mom, but my life insurance beneficiary says to my sister, life insurance doesn't care there's a will, where's Julie? It's yours. Everything else is mom's. Okay. So when you have young kids, you should not name them as minor children, but a lot of people don't know that, or minor children as beneficiaries. So when you're filling out the online questions and it says, okay, if your kid's underage, who do you want to oversee money for them? Okay, well, my best friend. And what age do you think that they should be able to handle money on their own? Because 18 would be the default. Oh gosh, 27, 25, and they put that in there. Great, but that's in the will. You don't know how to connect the beneficiary to this over here. So your life insurance policy, which again, for regular folk is probably the biggest cash that's going to be generated. And if you haven't made your plan the beneficiary, then what would happen in that situation? Well, the insurance company is going to say, you said to give it to the 6-year-old. We can't. So we'll be happy to hold it for them till age 18. That's option one. Option two is you're going to have not you, because you're gone. Your executor is going to have to go to court, get the court to decide who will oversee it, because will doesn't matter. You didn't say the will had anything to do with this or trust had anything to do with this.
Wow.
So I have to go to the court registry. Judge is going to decide who's going to oversee it. And at age 18, here you go, kiddo. So in situations like this could backfire in 100 ways, but people who are divorced, while they may have to suck it up that their ex would be the guardian, they can do this so that the ex isn't overseeing any of their money for their mutual kid. But if you did the scenario I just played out where I'll do it online, but kid's beneficiary, then who do you think the judge is going to appoint to oversee that money?
Their mother.
Your ex.
Or their ex. Your ex. Their mother or their father. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why it's planning. It's not we fill out documents for you. And it's why we love AI and Chat GPT. Like that is not something that scares people in our firm at all. We love stuff like that because we find ways to help benefit the client in making things more efficient and streamlined and automated. But we also know that's not what our clients, that's not the value they're getting. The value is that will never be replaced. Well, I mean, I don't want to say never, but this is not, there's a lot of downsides to AI, but listening to you, understanding the nuances of your circumstances, customizing a plan for you, making sure that we're asking those questions, telling you how to do it. And everybody is different. There's no one size fits all. And so again, could talk for a long time about just DIY, but those are some of the big ones. Not signed properly, legal things can get missed, like losing a homestead exemption. And then for people who have young kids or minor children that they're trying to benefit, it's not telling you how to set up the beneficiaries.
It's just, I mean, you don't pull your own teeth. At least I hope you don't. Don't do your own estate planning.
Yeah.
I don't even
you can read a book how to do it, Robin.
pull my own. I don't even color my own hair. I'm not, I don't cut my, I leave certain things up to the professionals, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about this and nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about when I die, and nobody wants to, even think about that, because it's, whatever those emotions are that are around that.
Yeah.
And yet you need to know, one, that your wishes are met. If you have particular wishes, you just have to, personally, I could change my mind if I come into millions and millions, but I'm gone. I don't really care which kid I don't care where it goes. Just do something kind with it. That's all. Just don't be an ass. But, at the same time, you want things to be done right, and you don't want to leave hardship for your loved ones at the, they don't want to come home from your funeral and now have a nightmare with your house, with cars, with assets, life, all of that.
It really truly is an act of love to do this for your loved ones, and also to do it for yourself, because this will be part of your story. This will be part of your legacy. I was actually thinking about this earlier today, so this might be one of my posts. I don't know. I have to figure out how to articulate it. But I've got 2 great stepkids, and then I have 2 of my own daughters, 1 and 4. And I really just want them, and my sister, and I want them to have that kind of bond growing up. And I hope that I'm nurturing that. And for some reason, maybe because I do what I do for a living, and I'm on this rant right now with the 31 days, and it's not just confined to August, by the way. But I think about how many siblings don't talk to each other anymore because they fought in the emotions of when mom, dad, parents passed away, because things weren't discussed, things weren't set up. I've seen this happen even when there was a will in place. And I'm just bringing that up, Robin, because for a lot of reasons, I talk about it all the time, but you talked about, people don't want to think about this. They don't want to talk about it. And that's never been anything I am not sensitive to. Like, I get it. It's why we try to make it fun at our firm. But that's got to be what's motivating you, is to understand what's at risk and taking some time out, because you are risking, it's not just your money and stuff, your legacy, your story could be having your family torn apart. Having your kids not have a relationship with each other, having your grandkids not know their cousins. It really is that big of a deal.
Wow. I think that's it right there. It is that big of a deal.
Yeah,
it is. And I get on my soapbox from time to time around this office and with the people I know, and I run into situations and I give your number to them 1,000 times. I'm like, look, she's having this thing on this seminar online, sign up for it, go to this, call her, do this, do that, because they just, if you've got a bank account, you need a will at the very least. I don't care if you don't have to have a house right now.
Or you at least need to have some guidance.
Yes.
That's the thing, is that there's a lot of ways that we can guide people. And that's the point, is, I don't call the doctor and say I need an appendectomy. I go to the doctor and say, here are my symptoms. And the doctor says what, they think I should do. So when people call us, it's so adorable when they call us and tell us what they need, especially when they get terms wrong. I'm like, I've never heard of that before. But it's like, let's not worry about what you think you need. Let's talk about what you want, what your circumstances are, what your goals are. And then our job is to tell you options or what we think is the best way.
Well, because it's meeting the wants by by meeting your needs. But I know from what you want, the steps that you need to take.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
So,
It's
all right.
adulting. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna tell you that it's really fun to think about this. I'm not gonna tell you it's gonna
No.
be some work. I'm not gonna tell you it's not gonna be some money. Like, as much as we know how much it saves, none of us are at Burch Law are like, oh, but it's nothing. It's nothing to pay this
Yeah.
kind of money to do it. No, we're not saying that. It's just we've gotten a little desensitized to it
Yeah.
because we see what it costs to not do it.
Well, and you almost have to be sometimes because you hear the stories and you would cry every day when you when you left work if
Oh,
you
it's
didn't
terrible.
find maybe some humor
Yeah.
in some things because again, it is vital. It
Yeah.
is a really big deal and you really want to pay attention. I mean, that's just gets down to it and be open-minded that you don't know something just because you're from Ohio and
Yeah.
you did something else because
Oh,
states
or your
are
brother or
different.
sister's roommate 30 years ago did this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's gotta be what you're
And
yeah. Oh,
laws change, state to state changes.
and
I
just
mean,
you're 100% correct. And also just circumstances are different.
yes.
Well,
Nobody's
that's not what happened in my situation.
well, that's because your financial situation was different. Your marital situation was different. Your children's situation was different.
And it could also be, Rob, that what they had done was done incorrectly and they just haven't found out yet.
There's that. It was all done wrong.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Lorie, tell people how they can get in touch with you, what, just where you are and what you are and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so we're all over the socials. Me personally, I'm much more active in Facebook. You can look up Burch Law, Burch, and really going to our website, burch-law.com. Also, coveryourassets.law.com, cyalaw.com, and about 13 other ones that are like that. But those all lead to us. We have a lot of great information there. There's a way to contact us. Get information. We do seminars. We do lots of blog postings. If you're interested in this 31 Days of Truth, we not only can you follow along, it's exclusively on Facebook. However, we do also have a subscription to the 31 days. So, and it would just be 31 days. It's not 31 days of August. So whenever anybody
Yeah.
signs up, they'd get a daily email of this. And so they can sign up for any of those things. Burch-law.com. That's the way to get in touch with us. Or you can email us at hello@burch-law.com. I stole that from my landscaping company because I've always wanted to have like this fun, like, general inbox. And so for
Yeah.
years it's been office@burch-law.
And that's
They changed that. I'm like, that's what I want.
I like that.
That's what I want. Hello.
Hello.
Burch-law.
All right. Well, Lorie, thank you so much for taking some more time to just educate us a little bit. And if one person says, I am gonna, they get what we're throwing. They
Yeah.
pick up what we're putting down. They
Yeah.
understand that this is, in fact, a really big deal.
Yeah.
That in itself changes lives because it changes everybody's life when you're gone. And people do really love your butt. So take care of those people.
Yeah. And
They love
hopefully you love yourself enough
Yeah.
to do this. When people might say, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, that's reasonable. I thought it'd be way more. But when we, quote an estimate to somebody and they do like have some sticker shock, we're like, you're worth it, right?
And you are worth it.
You are worth
You
it.
are worth it. So
And so is your family.
your family's probably worth it more than you are in some cases. So anyway, thank you so much for being with us. And this is another episode of Relax, I Got This. We're elevating your real estate IQ. Tune in next time and we'll see ya.
Thanks for joining us for Relax, I Got This with Texas Realtor Robin McCoy. Check out all the show notes for contact information on Robin and our guests and to access your free buyer and seller guides. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a conversation. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Relax, I Got This with Robin McCoy.